9 Plus Us presents the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Blackjack Brad and Kansas City Little Big Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast, Baseball Family. I am Brad, and this week we are actually joined by a very special guest, somebody from our Facebook VIP group, Jason D'Agostino. Say hi, Jason.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome to the podcast, Jason. Are you ready for this?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
As ready as I'll ever be.
Absolutely. Just kind of throwing you into the fire there with this one. I thought we'd give Brig another week off, so I asked Jason if he would join me. This week we're going to talk about some current events. Not a whole lot going on, but there is some discussion that we can have there. I'm going to give Jason a baseball quiz, and then in honor of his creation of the controversial most overrated player bracket on the VIP group, we're going to give our 3 most overrated players. So here we go. Let's get into this. First things, really only things first. The MLB and the MLB Players Association, the union, can't seem to agree on anything. There's been proposals volleyed back and forth with number of games, rate, like salary rates, things like that. The players even suggested that if there is no postseason because of another COVID outbreak, that they would take basically, what's the word I'm looking for? They could pay their salaries later. What's that word I'm thinking of? Deferrals.
Oh, I can't. Yes.
Yeah, they would take deferrals on their salaries, which I thought was a pretty big move, especially for these guys who are like, I want my money now. But Jason, does this have you worried at all for a season?
I think I mentioned it in a post on the group. I think we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility of there not being a baseball season this year. Mm-hmm. It would be, for some of us, the second time in our lifetimes that this has happened.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they're still volleying back and forth offers. Mm-hmm. The most recent one, I know that the owners are offering an 85% or 80%, 85% of mm-hmm. the prorated salary. So they're trying to bridge that gap somehow. Mm-hmm. I can't, as I said in the group, I don't fault the players for doing something that I think any of us would do if we were in the same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be willingly going to work for a pay cut. I mean, on one hand, it's like, if that's the only option you have, you take it, you know? But where these guys, a lot of them only have really like a 3-year window to make as much money as possible. That can be scary, you know, that, well, I remember David Sampson, who, you know, I reference him a lot. He was the president of the Miami Marlins for a long time, but he talks about how there was one pitcher for his World Series winning team who took his money from making baseball. He's like, he didn't make a bunch, but he made enough, because even the league minimum, you know, that's more than what most people are going to make in several years. He took that and he went to dental school. Now he's a dentist. He's got a World Series ring and a DDS or whatever, you know, DMD, whatever he chose to, you know. So yeah, these guys have such short windows. I can see why they'd be fighting for pretty much every penny they can get, right?
Exactly. I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go for it.
I was just going to make a reference, going back to the overrated tournament. Someone that was talked about a lot was Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson's peak career was only a few years, and then he got injured mm-hmm. playing another sport. We never actually got to see how big he was. Mm-hmm. So talking about how small of a window of opportunity these guys have to play at peak performance, mm-hmm. that's very imperative. You have an extremely great point on that, especially with these guys getting paid. And with COVID-19, they're looking out for their best interests, and can't fault them.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, Blake Snell presented, he said he's worried about safety, you know, and you hear about people who do get COVID-19 and it affects their lungs. As a professional athlete, that's obviously pretty important, especially as a pitcher. That if one of these guys were to catch it and they were to have severe scarring of their lungs, that's essentially a career-ending injury, right? Right. So I definitely get the concern with a lot of these guys that, you know, they're worried about themselves. I know, is it Sean Doolittle with the Nats? I believe his wife has a respiratory issue.
So if he's playing, mm-hmm. he's putting her at risk.
Yeah, if he's coming home after games, he's definitely putting her at risk, and I can see why a lot of these guys aren't going to want to leave their families too. You know, Mike Trout's got a baby on the way. I can't imagine. I mean, you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
some days it kills me to go to work.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say, yeah, there are some days where it's like, yeah, I could use 3 months away. That'd be fantastic. But I know after a day or two, I'd be wanting to come home. You know, and yeah, like
exactly.
you said, 8-hour shift at work, you're ready to come home at night and see the wife, see the kids, everybody. So I can't imagine, you know, playing in a bubble for 3 months and not being able to see my kids and all the risk that comes with it. So, you know, I get the concerns, I get all that, I get the money, you know, I understand all that, and I feel like the owners, I don't want to say they're being cheap because you don't get that rich by not being cheap, right?
Right.
I get their concerns as well, but at the same time, what I've been saying is, if you play a season, the money will come back.
Oh yeah,
like
without a doubt.
Yeah, because you're going to draw more interest, you're going to bring in more fans, and there are ways that now that they can draw revenue. I mean, yeah, they're not going to have fans in the seats, but you can sell banners. I think they've done that at some of the stadiums in the KBO. They've sold advertising banners in the outfield.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
I mean, am I crazy to think that if they kind of bite the bullet and lose some money every game this year, that it'll eventually make itself up over the next couple of years? Is that a crazy thought?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, if we go back to 94 when they had the lockout due to the player strike,
mm-hmm.
baseball struggled for a couple of years, and then we had the now controversial home run chase between Sosa and McGuire, and that kind of brought baseball back into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But the 95, 96, 97 seasons, sure, you always had the diehards that were going to come back no matter what, but the casual fan was slow in coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And, you know, as far as the game coming back, Rob Manfred did say this week, because they had the draft, and I'll be honest with you, I don't watch the MLB draft because we're not going to see those guys for a couple of years, most of them. So I don't typically watch the draft. And I don't know who any of those guys are because I don't watch college baseball, and I definitely don't pay attention to high school baseball. So I don't know who's getting drafted, so I just don't watch it. But anyways, he did say as the draft is starting, he said there 100% will be baseball this year, even if it's with the March agreement. And I don't know if you share mine and Briggs' disdain for Rob Manfred, Jason, but I was very happy to hear this. Because basically for me, I was like, okay, he just signed his death sentence as commissioner. Because the owners do not want to come back with that prorated agreement with no fans in the stands. And he just gave the Players Association reason to never negotiate again, because eventually Manfred is going to say, enough is enough. We're coming back. We're playing. We had an agreement in March. We're sticking to it. I mean, again, I just keep asking, is that another crazy thought that I have there? That potentially the Players Association no longer has to negotiate because it's done. Is that kind of what that seems like?
He's definitely tipped weight in their favor, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, again, I've mentioned it on the VIP board,
mm-hmm.
if you go back through history, these lockouts happen more so because of the owner's unwillingness to bridge the gap
mm-hmm.
than it is the players.
Yeah.
The players are looking out for their best interest, and so are the owners, and I get it. This season is a cluster simply because of the things that cannot be controlled at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Manfred's concerned, I dislike him a whole lot more than Sealy.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
I wanted Bob Costas. That's just me.
I think we all want Bob Costas, but he's said that he won't do it because he loves the game too much, which I get. I get that. But no, like for me, it's like the owners are like, why would you tip our hand? Nobody knows, not everybody knows that that's available, that maybe we could get the union to start to break. And now nobody's going to. They're never going to budge because they know that this is a possibility, that we had this agreement. We can go back to it because of emergency protocols from the commissioner. And so I'm like, maybe this is a win-win. We're going to get baseball. Players are going to get what they want, so we'll get as much as possible. And then come next year, maybe, if the owners are still not happy, maybe he'll be out and we'll get somebody better in. I don't know. I mean, because I sure don't want Manfred negotiating a CBA at the end of the 2021 season. Because with the way these negotiations are going, man, there may not be baseball in 2022, and that's a scary thought too.
To make a comparison to another sport, he's got that Gary Bettman stink to him. I mean, Gary Bettman is he's not a beloved commissioner of his sport by any means for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And Manfred's he's got that hint of it.
Yeah, he does. For anybody who doesn't know, Gary Bettman is the commissioner of the NHL, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. It's almost like beloved commissioners. It goes Adam Silver of the NBA, who everybody loves because he does and says everything right. Like, I wish he could just be the commissioner of sports. He's so good. And then you've got Roger Goodell somehow at second, who everybody still hates. But then, I don't know, it's kind of a tie between Bettman and Manfred. Somehow,
I think Manfred's got a little bit of edge.
He probably does have a little bit of an edge. But still, everybody's calling for his head lately. Nobody likes what he's doing. It's ridiculous. But that's definitely something to watch out for. We could see, I mean, according to him, we're going to have baseball this year. It's going to happen. Like you said, it could be the March agreement with 100% prorated salaries instead of 80%, like what was pitched this week. And, Trevor Bauer made a point. He said, don't let the math fool you. 40 games at, 100% prorated salaries. And then, what was this one? It was like 70 games at 80%?
72, I believe.
Yeah, 72 at 80%. Bauer said he'd be making the same money either way.
Yeah, it's going to be a wash for the players.
Yeah, so he said, don't let the numbers trick you. It's the same amount of money. We're not going to take that. So, interesting thought there. They're probably going to hold out until Manfred puts his foot down and says they're going to play. So, keep your eye on that. See how it goes. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to give Jason a little quiz so we can get to know him better.
No matter which ballpark you're at, you want to rep your team. Now you can with 9+ Us. Welcome to the Big City Series. With every design available in your team's colors, you can fit in with the home crowd or stand out on the road. Either way, we have the colors you crave. Shop the Big City Series and find designs that rep your favorite baseball podcast, cheer from the cheap seats, and much more. Shop the Big City Series only at 9plusus.com.
Welcome back to the Baseball Together podcast, baseball family. Let's get to know Jason a little bit. This is honestly actually the first time I've had like a full-on 100% conversation with Jason. I'll be honest with you guys. We've texted some, we've had conversation on the group, but this is the first time in my life I have ever heard his voice, I believe. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of a funny thing. But let's get to know Jason a little bit better. And baseball family, I'll tell you right now, if you want to come on the podcast and do this with us, let us know. We will absolutely bring you on. We'll have a lot of fun with it. So, Jason, brace yourself. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do a rundown. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
No green. No, I'm just kidding. Very good. All right. What is one unpopular opinion you have about the game of baseball?
An unpopular opinion?
Yeah, an unpopular opinion.
I think you should still be allowed to collide at home plate.
That's a good one. I remember that Buster Posey collision. I was like, that's just a freak accident. Come on now. Right?
Yeah, it was no Ray Fosse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I grew up catching, and the very first, so I guess I would have been 10. The very first game of that season, our shortstop threw the ball a little bit wide of the plate, and I had to reach across my body to get it. And this kid, who we were playing up because of a couple of kids on our team were a little bit older than us, we had to play up a league.
Okay.
And this kid, who's twice my size, came barreling in, hit me at the waist, and I flipped up over his back like something out of a Mighty Ducks movie.
Oh.
And I crashed down on the ground. And my coach comes out to talk to everybody. He looks at me. He's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. He's like, you guys have got to get that throw online. You're going to kill him back there. This is the first game of the season.
So since you're mentioning youth baseball, where I grew up, what we called Little League was really town ball.
Okay.
There's 4 teams in our league. It was the Pirates, Phillies, the Yankees, the Indians / Marlins, and that's where I was. My dad was coaching the Indians, and then when I started playing, he stopped coaching. Didn't want that situation, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I started as a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 8 years old playing town ball. There's no age teams, so you're on a team of 8-year-olds through 12-year-olds.
Oh man.
Imagine being an 8-year-old kid stepping into the batter's box, batting against a 12-year-old pitcher who's throwing like 50 to 60 mile per hour heat.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's exactly how it felt. We were 10 years old playing against 12-year-olds, and I felt like all those kids were 6 feet tall with mustaches.
Yes.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Granted, I was a couple years older, but still, no, the fear and the intimidation of that. And by the way, we got boat raced every single game because of that. Like, absolutely, mercy ruled every game because they were so much bigger than us. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Man, the best thing about that, like our town league, was like you had your friends, and then come game time, they were not your friends.
Yep.
They were the enemy, and you had to win.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a fun thing about playing like within the town. Like I coached a couple years ago. My buddy and I, like, we didn't have any kids on the team. We just decided we wanted to coach, so we went down and they put us, on a team or whatever to coach. And we had to get it into these kids' head because they'd like see their friends across the field. Like, they're not your friends right now. They're your enemies. They're your opponents. Like, what do you mean? We're just kidding. Just go out there and play and have fun. But yeah, it was because that's how it was for us though. Like, we would play kids that we knew, and it was, like,
exactly.
No, we're here to beat you into the ground. We're not here to be friends. No, that's tons of fun. All right. What is the name of your autobiography?
I tried my best.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I like that a lot. If the Phillies were an Avenger, who would they be?
Ooh, if the Phils were an Avenger, who would they be? Oh, they're such a quirky franchise. Probably Thor. Not so much for the superpowers, but personality.
Yeah. I like that. And I was going to ask that question: if Bryce Harper were an Avenger, who would he be? And my thought was actually Thor, partially because of the hair. It's gotten pretty long.
He's got that 93 Macho Row Phillies look down pat.
He does. He does look like he belongs on that team. I almost feel like he's not quite big enough because he's likely not artificially inflated, but at the same time, like, he does have that 93 Phillies look. He does have it, yeah.
To be fair, Kruk was not artificially enhanced. That was straight up Oscar Mayer.
It's true. That's absolutely true. 100%. But yeah, I'm sure there were guys on the team who were, and yeah. And you know what? I've actually got a buddy who Bryce Harper is his cousin-in-law.
No way.
Bryce Harper, yeah. He married his cousin, my buddy's cousin. And one year he got to sit down with him and watch the World Series. I want to say it was like 2010. He sat down and watched a World Series game with him, and he's like, "You have no idea how big that guy is." He's like, he is bigger than any human I have ever met in my whole life. He is just huge. It's like, dang, because he looks pretty big on TV, but he's like, yeah, it does no justice. He's enormous.
No, I can believe that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, pretty cool to hear about. All right, Jason, tell me about your very worst ballpark experience.
Oh man, very worst ballpark experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really. I mean, obviously there's crappy times at the ballpark, but I've never really had like a bad time. Even like my worst time. Mm-hmm. So 2007, myself and I was already out of high school, but the guy who came with me was my soccer coach. He actually just joined the VIP group this week.
Oh, nice. Welcome.
We went to see the Phils play against the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And it poured the entire game, and they didn't call the game. And by the time the game was over, it was me, him, and 2 other guys in our section, and we were having the time of our life. We were soaked to the bone, but we were having just a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah, that and I could see that being like down there because of the rain, but at the same time, like it's like they say with golf, a bad day on the golf course is better than a good day in the office, and it's the same thing with baseball. A bad day at the ballpark is better than a good day anywhere else, pretty much.
I would disagree on the golf part.
I would totally disagree on the golf part because I actually sold my golf clubs a couple years ago because I was like, I'm done with this stupid sport. Like, I'm totally done. But no, I'm just saying, like, with the saying, and I feel like that relates over to baseball.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've gotten extremely sunburned to the point I can't move at the ballpark.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Brig and Tiff, we've talked about with the Orem Owls because I like I said, I worked with them as an intern, and there were a few times I went and got a hot dog, just give it another chance. And they've talked about how that is the absolute worst hot dog you can get in the world, and I will 100% vouch for that. That my worst ballpark experience ever has been trying to get a good hot dog at an Orem Owls game. I mean, I spent every home game for an entire season at that stadium, and probably had 4 or 5 of them, and none of them were good. They are all awful somehow. I don't know how. But, that is by far my worst ballpark experience, is trying to get a hot dog at an Orem Owls game.
That's still not that bad of an experience if it's
it really
just
isn't.
a hot
No,
dog.
yeah, because the fries were good, so that kind of saved it, and then I had free soda, so whatever.
There you go.
All right, let's see what else we have here. If you could have an ability of any baseball player in history, what would it be and why? So, like, if you wanted like Clayton Kershaw's curveball or Randy Johnson's slider, somebody's Griffey's swing, what would you choose and why?
Oh man. Okay, I'll be a homer on this one.
Okay.
I've always loved Chase Utley's swing. He
kind of
has
against the grain there on that one.
He has an awesome swing. He always put the ball in play. He could hit for power if he needed to, but he was never like a power hitter.
Right.
All of it was just based on the mechanics and motion of his swing.
I like that. That's a really good one. That's great. Kind of I guess not against the grain, but that's a deep cut. That's not one that I would have expected. All right, which team in baseball, minor league or major league, has the best hat?
All right, I'm wearing it right now. Actually, you can't see it. So where I work in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and that's home to the Harrisburg Senators. Their stadium is located on an island in the city, and on hot summer nights, mayflies show up because of the lights in the stadium. They have a hat. It's an alternate hat with a mayfly holding a baseball bat.
That's really cool.
I
gotta look this up.
It's not something I think people outside the area would think are cool, but as someone from the area, I think it's absolutely amazing.
Oh, that is a cool hat. That's really cool. Like the navy blue with the mayfly on it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. That's a great looking hat. And they also have the, is that George Washington holding is that a firecracker or a beer?
They have a George Washington celebrating the Nats World Series win. And then they also have cool. Uncle Slam, who was their mascot for a long time.
That's really cool. Oh, yeah, that's George Washington with goggles and a champagne bottle.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh, that's so funny. That's amazing. That might be my new favorite hat. But that mayfly hat is really cool. I'm going to have to put that up so everybody can see it.
Yeah, I'm really lucky in that I'm located close to a bunch of minor league teams. Like I travel an hour every day to go to Harrisburg to work, and Senators are right there. I've walked from my office building to the island to see games.
That's cool.
Where I live, I can catch Reading, Pennsylvania in an hour, and see the Reading Fight and Phil. So I go there a lot with my dad and my grandfather. That's our Father's Day tradition. About an hour and 10, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, going east, we can go to see the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. If I want to see an independent game, I can go to Lancaster, New York in about an hour 30.
Nice. That's really cool. And that's actually one thing for anybody who doesn't know, we recently moved to Arizona just a couple weeks ago, and darn it, COVID-19, there's nothing going on right now, but I mean, we're only like 10 minutes from Chase Field. When next year during spring training, if there is spring training, cross your fingers, hope so. We're like 15 minutes from Peoria Sports Complex, 15 minutes from, I think it's Camelback Park is where the Dodgers play. And then, obviously not very far from any other stadium because they're all so close together. I'm like, man, next March, I'm going to have a heyday going to baseball games. And it sounds like that's just kind of like another week for you.
Yeah. Right? I don't get to go to that many games anymore with the kids, but I mean...
Yeah, that definitely changes things.
The guaranteed game is always the Father's Day game. I always get my dad and grandfather tickets for Father's Day. Obviously, that's changed this year.
Yeah.
But I'm making up for that in other ways.
That's cool. That's really cool. All right, I got one more for you. Are you ready?
Yep.
If you could visit one stadium from any time, what would it be?
Man, so from any time. I mean, the two that are currently there that I want to go to in the worst way are definitely Wrigley, definitely Fenway, simply because of the history there.
Right.
But man, I'd love to go to some of those old ballparks like Ebbets or Shibe that are in the center of the city. It's crammed in there with all these houses. You have crazy right field foul lines.
Yeah.
Left field's far away. I'd love to experience one of those ballparks.
That's cool. I've always just wanted to see the Polo Grounds, that legendary center field.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That to me, that would just be one crazy game to watch. But that's great though. All right, let's go ahead and take one more break. When we get back, we're going to talk about overrated players. You can add us if you want. That's fine. We'll be back.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back with me. Root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Shop kids' baseball shirts at 9pluss.com.
Welcome back, baseball family. Okay, we're going to wrap things up with this episode. We're going to talk about our top 3 most overrated players of all time. Like I said, this is in honor of Jason's very controversial, overrated player bracket on the VIP group.
To say the least.
To say the least. If you're not a member of the VIP group, search 9pluss VIPs on Facebook. Come check it out. We actually have, what's the bracket we have going on right now? It's the best MLB logo, right?
It is. It is the best MLB logo. I think we are on match 4 of the first round.
Oh, sweet. Sounds like I've got some voting to do because I think I've only done 2. So that's as of Friday night, June the 12th. So, like I said, if you're not in the group, come join us. We have a lot of fun there, a lot of good conversation, and also special deals sometimes from the shop, and we'll get into that later. But anywho, here we go. Jason, share with me your number 3. Let's go 3, 2, 1. Okay. So your number 3 most overrated player. Who you got?
I think an easy number 3. And one of the big controversies. I'll segue before I even get into anything because that's what I'm going to do. one of the big controversies were in the tournaments and the discussions was some people were going strictly numbers, strictly statistics, and I get it and I agree with it. One thing that I know Brig and I had talked about in the comments on one of the posts was, player attitude, their hustle, how they are in the game. Are they clutch? How are they in the locker room? For me, number 3, it's an easy pick for me. It's A-Rod. He's a guy that was blessed with a ton of talent.
Yeah.
But was a bit of a prima donna. He came with a lot of mental baggage, a lot of physical baggage, as we eventually found out with the PEDs, which it's going to be a recurring theme with me. And I think he took away from the Yankees sometimes in a way that was not positive for the team. Sure, they were super successful, but when you have a team with Jeter and then you got A-Rod, Jeter just kind of had that. He was held to a certain standard because he made himself that standard, and A-Rod was just.
Sorry, A-Rod was just what? Sorry, you cut out there at the very last
I'm sorry. A-Rod was just A-Rod. You got what you got with him, and that's all you were gonna get. You weren't gonna get more. You weren't gonna get less.
And see, like for me, A-Rod, I wouldn't call him overrated. I would call him hated for sure because of the PED thing. But I mean, he exceeded expectations. He played, and obviously he had help, but he still, when everybody was like when he came back and everybody was wanting him to fail, he outplayed those expectations. He was still out there hitting home runs when he was, quote unquote clean, because who knows at that point. But at the same time, he went out there with what was possibly a massive distraction and played well for the most part. I mean, there were a couple times he'd go out there and lay eggs, like in the postseason and stuff. But as a Mariners fan, having watched him come up, and granted I was very young, but when he came up and played his early years, I mean, that was just... And there's a reason the Rangers wanted to pay him when he left Seattle, right? Because
I definitely think there were 2 A-Rods.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Mariners A-Rod, and he was... I think the expectations put on him might have been a little too much to some degree, and I think that's what led to where he went.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that Mariners A-Rod was something, and then Yankees A-Rod was a whole different creature.
He really was.
Just like there was random immaturity on a guy who had played on 3 teams, like yelling at someone on the base path to get them to miss catching the ball, and like just little things like that. I'm just like,
Yeah, I always crack up about that because it's one of those things you joke about playing pickup ball or like at practice with your buddies, but you never actually have the guts to do it in a game. And he had the guts to do it in a major league game.
Yeah.
I just crack up about that. It's so funny.
Why did you decide to do that?
That of all moments in your entire life that you that stupid move in a big league game. It just that actually cracks me up. I laugh about that. Like anytime it's brought up, I laugh so hard because it's so funny. But no, I think you're right. There were 2 different A-Rods. There was the Mariners A-Rod, which I actually had pretty close and up close and personal experience with, and then the Rangers and Yankees A-Rod was a completely different person. And as Briggs says, that he may or may not be a sociopath. I don't know. We'll see. But and that really came out, especially with the Yankees. But anyways, all right. So for your number 3, you got A-Rod. Okay. For my number 3, this is probably going to be the most controversial thing I say in my entire life. I'll be honest with you. I know there are certain people who will agree with me on this. But this is something that I've actually felt for a while. I'm going to go with Babe Ruth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Yeah, that is a shot fired. And I understand that. And I'm probably going to get a lot of people coming after me on this. And that's fine. Like I said, at me. That's just fine. I'll have a conversation with you. But let me defend myself here, okay? Babe Ruth essentially ended the dead ball era, okay? which that's a big deal. I mean, it was it was that he completely changed the game of baseball, which I appreciate, right? But at the same time, I'm a basketball fan. Steph Curry changed basketball. He essentially eliminated the center, but I'm not going to ever say that he's the best player ever, even the top 5. Okay? So Babe Ruth played in an era where the pitching may or may not have been very good, you know. He hit 11 home runs in 1918 and led the league. He hit 29 home runs in 1919 and led the league. Granted, he went on 54, 59, 41, 46, 47, 60, 54, 50, 46, 49, 46, 41. He didn't lead the league with 41 or 34 at the end of his career, towards the end of his career. But at the same time, you know, he did have all those, which, like I said, what was the pitching like back then? You know, Jason, for all I know, you and I may have been able to step in the box and hit 10 home runs that season. You know, when he was hitting 54, 59. I don't know.
I can see your argument. I can. I'm not going to be, you know, holier than thou on this. I can see your argument. And to make another basketball reference, since you referenced basketball, you can easily see Michael Jordan in his prime, who is the equivalent to Babe Ruth of basketball, playing, being competitive, and being successful now.
Yeah.
You can't say the same thing about Babe Ruth.
Exactly right. Yeah, that there are pitchers now who, with the understanding of spin rate and the physics that go into pitching, I mean, Aroldis Chapman might just blow 3 fastballs by the Babe. I don't know. You know, he does that to a lot of guys, but maybe he could do that 3-4 times in a row. That he won't ever catch up to that 100 and what is now 103 mile an hour fastball.
Some guys top out at that, yeah.
Yeah, that his bat may never catch up to that because he was swinging that log. You get him something that's a little more ergonomically designed, maybe an axe bat, something a little bit lighter than that log. Maybe he will catch up to it, but I don't know if he ever would. And he kind of had, this is another thing people are going to kill me for, I think. He kind of had that Giancarlo Stanton swing from what I remember. Like, if you watch those videos and stuff like that, it looks like he kind of has that Giancarlo Stanton swing where it's really, really fast through one zone. And those hands are really tight. You know what I'm saying? That
he's trying to he's
trying to hit a home run every single at bat, which is
right.
fine.
And he had the power to do it.
Exactly.
He was built to do it.
Exactly. He's built to do it. He was kind of a portly guy. He was it was 6'2", 215. Okay, which I'm not one to talk because anyway, but.
I'm there with you.
But no, I feel like given if he were to be taken from his era and brought into this era, so many people are like, oh, the Babe would still dominate. No, I don't think he would. And I don't feel like we should be propping up a player from 100 years ago where the game was completely different. Yes, he changed the game, but I don't think we should be propping up a player from 100 years ago and the game was completely different than what it even is now as the best player in history, because there are players now who would go back then and just crush the ball. That's what I believe.
No, I see your point.
So that's why Babe Ruth is number 3 for me. All right. You ready to move on?
Sure.
Okay. All right, let's go to number 2. Who you got for number 2?
I have Ryan Braun.
Ryan Braun. That's a good one. Please tell me why.
It's just looking at his. I'm gonna do the numbers thing on this one.
Okay.
And it does tie into PEDs. You look at his numbers before he got nailed for PEDs.
Mm-hmm.
He was batting, what? Let's see here. Over 300, 37 homers, 118 RBIs, and that's at his peak.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, he's averaging 280, 27 homers, under 100 RBIs.
Mm-hmm.
His value on performance-enhancing drugs and where he is after that, 2 totally different players.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy seeing guys like that because you see some guys who it's like, oh, he still would have been a great player. Like people talk about Barry Bonds. He was still a Hall of Famer before he took steroids, right? Allegedly. But Ryan Braun has been an All-Star one time since then.
Yeah.
And that makes That's evidence
He's
right
almost
there.
the epitome of the guy who needed them to succeed.
Yep. For sure. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. That's a perfect way to put it. He is the epitome of the guy who needed them to succeed to become an all-star. So, because since then he's been a good player, but he has not been anywhere near a great player at all.
And boy, is that an albatross of a contract for the Brewers.
Yes. So bad. And, we talked about the CBA coming up next year, and, maybe that's something that we'll see because players have called for contract voiding with positive PED tests.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on because that could have saved the Brewers big time.
Well, without a doubt.
So, all right, my number two. This is one where I don't think there's a whole lot of controversy, but I think I've got kind of a little bit of a different angle on it. I've got Bryce Harper at number 2. Now, before I go too much further,
I'm kind of glad you mentioned him.
Well, I'm a huge Bryce Harper fan. Like, I like watching him play the game. I like his attitude, that he's got the long hair and he's intense. He's excited. He's excited about baseball, and that's kind of the way I approach it. It's a ton of fun. Get excited about it, But I feel like he's overrated, but not by any fault of his own, right? Because the guy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16?
16.
So right there, that bar is set so high, he's never going to be able to meet it. That he would have had to put up Barry Bonds steroid. There I go again. Barry Bonds numbers to be considered. He would have had to set the home run record. He would have had to hit 325, 330 every single year with 40 home runs to meet those expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the Nats rushed him through the system. I mean, he came up at 19. Sorry, go ahead.
So it's funny you say that because the Senators, as we mentioned earlier, that's like kind of like my home minor league team that I go see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the Nats AA affiliate. So I saw Bryce Harper as a teenager play baseball.
Nice.
And I was turned off from him fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of glad you brought him up because this is something I can talk about pretty from my personal experience as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him as a teenager refuse to sign autographs for a couple of kids.
Okay.
And that instantly turned me off on him.
Mm-hmm.
And had we been having this conversation 2 seasons ago, he would have been my number 1 pick because I saw him as a hothead.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him as cocky.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to see him play every day as a Philly. And I saw all the positives that were being talked about with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think him as a Philly and that whole mess with Gabe Kapler as the manager and McCutchen going down,
Mm-hmm.
I saw him step up and become a leader, and I was thoroughly impressed with him in his first season as a Philly. And I was not really on the fence or on the ball with him signing as a Philly. I was on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thoroughly impressed with how he handled himself with maturity and grace last season.
Yeah, and that was one of the big knocks on him with the Nationals was that he wasn't a clubhouse leader, and I think he was just miserable. I think he was miserable with the Nats. That's part of the reason he was such a hothead and why he was kind of barking at the media. And granted, he was also very young. That's one of the things with the minor league system is it gives these guys a chance to mature before they get to the big leagues. And he spent like a season and a half in the minors was all. And I feel like that was a major disservice to him as far as his development goes. That the Nats probably would have been accused of tampering with his service time if they'd kept him down any longer because obviously he was ready. But they could have just said, maturity-wise, he's not ready. He cannot handle a big league clubhouse yet, But I mean, I don't know if that's the case. But I do feel like the Nats did him a disservice of only having him in their minor league system for a year and a half.
And I agree with you. I think he was miserable as a National. He does the way he comes across as a Philly, not even talking like as a homer now, just as a baseball fan viewing a player's progress.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think in watching any of his interviews or watching him play the game as a Nat, I remember him smiling,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds stupid, but
Yeah, no, for sure.
he's all kicks and giggles as a Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he loves playing in Philadelphia, and that's a crazy thing to say about any athlete.
Because most people don't. Yeah, well, and then
Exactly.
and one thing too is, I mean, he is a dad now. I mean, you and I both know that being a dad goes a long ways to making you mature. So I'm sure that helps too. But I think where he's playing goes a long ways. He's finally, and he was forced to step up with the Phillies, like you said last year, that he was forced to be a clubhouse leader because of injuries, and he was never really forced to do that in Washington because A, it wasn't asked of him, and B, there were veteran pitchers around him, and Steven Strasburg's been there as long as he have, or longer, or whatever. I'm not sure exactly when he was drafted, but he's had other guys around him who were the leaders. He didn't have to be. He could just go out there and play the game, and maybe he was miserable with that role. Maybe he wanted to be more of a leader, and they're just like, oh, don't worry about it, just go play the game. So I don't know, but like I said, number 2 most overrated player for me, not by any fault of his own, but because of the expectation, the mantle that was put on him as a young phenom. That's just kind of the way it worked out for him. I do hope that he has a good year this year and next year when things come back, because I'm a big fan of his. So
he was on fire in spring training.
Oh, jeez. I always have a hard time with guys like that. Like, I always think back to Dustin Ackley. Dustin Ackley with the Mariners was a spring training all-star. I actually called it out one time. The Mariners posted his slash line during spring training, and I said, well, let's see what he's doing in June. And they said something back. I don't remember what it was, some snarky comment, but I was like, whatever, And then of course in June he was like batting $150. So
I was so excited for this season, watching the spring training games, because the Phils actually looked like a well-rounded team, and I think a lot of that has to do with having an experienced manager and not a statistical guru.
Yeah. Guys get handcuffed by those stats, by like the analytics and stuff, and that makes me absolutely insane. Speaking of this season, like being excited about this season, so Baseball Reference, one of my favorite sites because I'm a stat nerd, they're doing a simulated season since there's obviously no games. It's something for them to do. I was looking at this yesterday, and of course, in a pretend baseball season, the Mariners are on top of the AL West by a half a game over the Oakland A's at 44-27. Wouldn't you know it? Let's see where the Phils are. The Phils are 32-36, 7.5 back of the Braves.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
but if you want to see how your team is doing in pretend world, go check out it's baseball-reference.com. They have like I said, that simulated league. It's a bunch of fun. I think the Mariners are going to win the Pretend World Series. We'll see how it goes. Pretty excited about it. But
just an awesome site to go back and look at and compare players.
It is, and one of the things I love doing is going back and looking at games that I went to, because I have a really hard time following games that I'm at if I'm not doing a book, and I don't like to do that at the stadium. I just like to enjoy it.
You like to get lost in the game.
Yeah, exactly right. And I totally get lost in the game. So what I like to do is I like to go back and find games that I've been to and check the box score and see exactly what happened. See how the game shook out. It's a bunch of fun. They have games back as far as you can look, pretty much. They have those box scores. So that's a blast. But anyways, we're on to number 1, right? Your number 1 overrated player? All right, who's your number 1 all-time overrated player? Jason, ready, go.
So I was torn on this. Because I almost went with Jonathan Papelbon.
Okay.
Almost. And that's just more because of what he did to locker rooms.
Tore him apart.
But, and it's someone we've both referenced now, I went with Barry Bonds. Simply because Bonds' trajectory pre-San Francisco was through the roof. He was going to be a Hall of Famer. He was going to be an all-time great. And then he he started juicing. I mean, you can't be polite about it. He started juicing.
Yeah.
His entire physical shape changed.
I showed my wife a before and after picture a few weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, that's steroids."
I mean, and it's something I always reference a lot, and I know you've seen me reference it on the group. Is Ken Burns baseball? I think if you're a baseball fan, if you're a casual fan, you should watch it at least once. It is amazing. On their 10th inning, they talk about the home run chase, and a San Francisco sports writer talks about how Barry Bonds had this amazing season in '98, and it was completely overshadowed by McGuire and Sosa.
Yeah.
And he was quoted as saying, if that's all they want, that's all they're going to get. And from '98 on, if you look, his entire, not just physical shape changed, but his entire approach to the game changed. And he just became solely a home run hitter. He went from being this great, amazing, all-rounded baseball player to a freak of nature in his 30s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about this for a minute. This is what's crazy to me about Barry Bonds. He won an MVP. He won 2 MVPs in Pittsburgh. 90, 92. His first year in San Francisco, he wins an MVP. And then after that, still a great player, outstanding player. And then he wins 4 in a row, 2001 to 2004. I mean, he is, like you said, Ryan Braun is the epitome of somebody who needed steroids to be great. Barry Bonds is the epitome of somebody who was great, and then steroids took him to the absolute next level. Just a freak of nature when it came to baseball, because I've heard people talk about his eye when he's up batting, that he could track the ball longer than anybody had ever seen. That's why he was such a good hitter, that he saw the ball better than anybody to begin with. I mean, 92, he led the league in walks. 94, 95, 96, 97. This guy is a phenomenal, freaking amazing hitter.
He was a natural baseball player.
Yes,
if there was ever a natural baseball player, he was it. And it just seems like insecurity or jealousy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Led to what he did, and he never needed it. That's, I think, why I think he's overrated. He never needed performance-enhancing drugs to be an amazing baseball.
And yeah, I mean, I think if he had never ever juiced, he still would have gone down possibly as a top 5 player of all time. I mean, that might just be hyperbolic and a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, I think healthy.
He was on that trajectory.
He was healthy. He played every day. I mean, in '99 he played 102 games, but other than that, man, he's got 130, 140 games every single year. So I think he definitely could have been a top 5 player of all time had he not done steroids, and now he's the asterisk, the absolute asterisk in the Hall of Fame. So,
and it just frustrates, as a fan, it frustrates me because amazing player.
Absolutely. Yep. 100%. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, because I remember watching him when I was younger, because he was one of those guys that had some of his baseball cards. So I followed him. And I do remember how good he was. And I guess, I was young in the early 90s, mid 90s, but he was a guy I remember seeing on SportsCenter, seeing how good he was and how great of a player he was. And then seeing that as I got older, it just gets you that really nasty taste in your mouth,
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
It's a shame, too.
It really is a shame.
He should be in the Hall.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. He should be, and there is a real possibility he still could have broken the home run record even without steroids. I don't know if he would have, but there is a real possibility. So, okay. My number 1, this is going to make a lot of people really mad, I'll be honest with you. I've kind of argued this a little bit with Brig. There was an episode a while ago where we kind of talked about this, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with Derek Jeter as my number 1.
Wow.
Wow. And yes, I'll give him all the intangibles because there's a reason they called him the captain. The way he conducted himself was absolutely professional every single day, on and off the ball field. You talk about the intangibles, locker room guy. But for me, ability-wise, his intangibles by far outweighed his ability. Okay? And mostly my argument is based just on regular season because you can't argue that Jeter's postseasons were ever overrated because he was. I mean, there's Mr. November, that didn't come from nowhere, and that flip that everybody has seen, everybody knows, that just makes me so mad. I was just so angry in the moment that it happened because I was convinced that the A's were going to beat the Yankees and they didn't, and the Diamondbacks had to go beat them, which is cool because now I'm kind of a D-backs fan. But anyways, no, I just don't feel like Jeter was like, if you put him up against most guys on that team ability-wise, he wouldn't stack up. That if you had A-Rod and Jeter coming in side by side and said, A-Rod, we're going to give you a chance to win the shortstop position in New York over Derek Jeter, A-Rod wouldn't have won it, I feel like. Because he was the better fielder. And, by that point, A-Rod with the steroids, he was probably more of a third baseman body. But I still think he could have beat out Jeter for shortstop defensively. But, I mean, I feel like, I don't know, sometimes, like, for me, really what it comes down to is Jeter was helped with playing in New York. If he had played in Minnesota, if he'd played for the Twins, he wouldn't be the Derek Jeter that we all know and some love. And I respect him. I don't love Derek Jeter because he was a Yankee. He's a filthy Yankee. If he'd played in Seattle, I don't think he would have been Derek Jeter because A-Rod wasn't necessarily A-Rod until he went to New York, right? Everybody knew who he was, obviously, because there was the discussion around the biggest contract in professional sports history or North American sports history. But I don't know. It just, for me, like, Derek Jeter just doesn't do it for me, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
I think Jeter definitely benefited from coming up with veteran players when he came to the Yankees. I don't think there's many people who are going to out-hustle Derek Jeter, though. I think his work ethic was why he became what he became.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think you could. So maybe with the A-Rod comparison, they're apples and oranges, basically.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to Jeter, he's gonna work hard, he's gonna hustle, he's gonna do everything he can to improve. And A-Rod was a very gifted baseball player.
He was a natural ball player where Jeter had to work more for it. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense to me. But I do feel like Jeter benefited a lot from being in New York. That I don't think he would have been Derek Jeter if he'd been playing even like San Diego or anything like that. That massive market, the NY on the hat, the pinstripes, helped elevate his stature. I feel like, and that's just me.
I also, I'm not a Yankees fan, but I also think that New York market made him grow as a player and a person. I mean, he had to step up at times, and other players probably wouldn't have wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. It's really easy to shrink in that environment, right? And he came up as a young kid and was able to perform. I mean, he won the Rookie of the Year. What's that? 24th in MVP his second year, which, I feel like still could have been helped by the pinstripes, but that's just me. But no, I will absolutely give you that it would have been easy for him to shrink in that market. That there could have been a lot of Jeter, you bum, and he could have been like, yeah, I am a bum. Instead, he says, no, I'm not.
We both know there are players who don't want to go there.
Well, Brig has talked before about how Sonny Gray said that he couldn't handle the market, which that's nothing against Sonny Gray. He's a great pitcher. But, he's actually playing better now in Cincinnati. Or has been.
And some guys thrive in a small market environment.
Yeah. And so I'll give him that credit that he did rise to the occasion to play in that crazy market. And I think, and from all the stories that I've heard about him, that that's pretty much what his parents groomed him for. Was they said, if you're going to play baseball, you got to be able to handle it. And so they kind of, taught him how to be professional and act professional and everything like that. But no, just for me, it's really just like, and it might just be the Yankee hater thing in me that he just doesn't do it for me. So he's number one on my list. You can send me your angry tweets and things like that. That's fine. But that's my list. I've got Babe Ruth, Bryce Harper, and Derek Jeter.
I think only one of them people would agree with you on.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's true. But let's go ahead and wrap it up. Before we go, though, make sure you stop by the shop. That is 9plusus.com. Spell it out, NINEPLUSUS.com. You can stop by. I'm wearing my Pirate baseball hat today and my Autism Awareness shirt. That's actually my favorite combo to wear, the black hat with the blue shirt, because it looks really nice.
Complementary colors.
They look so good together. It's just I love it. But there's all kinds of stuff on there. We got pillows. They're awesome. We got some more stuff coming soon. Brig has been at it. I'm telling you, that guy has been making some designs. We got a bunch of fun stuff coming, and yeah, I'm excited about it. I can't wait. I can't tell you anything though, but you can go shop what we have available right now. Don't forget to stop by baseballtogether.com. You can watch the podcast, listen to the podcast. You can send us a message. Submit to our mailbag. Hey, if you want to be like Jason, be on the podcast, let us know. Send us a message through the mailbag or just something on Facebook. Say, hey, I'd love to be on the pod with you guys. We'll have you. It's fun. I had fun. Did you have fun today, Jason?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Excellent.
Had a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thanks for joining me, filling in for Brig. He will be back in a couple of weeks. We're going to get him back and hopefully get things back to normal. I don't even have my green screen up. I can't find it right now. I'm still getting unpacked. But I'll get the green screen back up and we'll have some fun with that stuff. But baseball family, thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast. Tell your friends about us so we can grow our community, and we will check you. Check you? No, we don't do check swings around here. We will catch you next week.